The story begins on a gray morning in the small town of Millbrook, where 23-year-old twins Sarah and Emma Crawford receive an unexpected letter from a lawyer they have never met. The twins live in a cramped apartment above a laundromat, working multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Sarah works as a waitress at the local diner while Emma stocks shelves at a grocery store overnight. They have been struggling since their parents passed away in a car accident 5 years ago, leaving them with nothing but debt and fading memories. The letter informs them that their estranged grandfather, retired police chief Harold Crawford, has passed away and left them his most valuable possession, the old Millbrook police station building on the edge of town. The twins barely remember their grandfather, as he had a falling out with their father decades ago over something neither parent would ever discuss. The last time they saw him, they were only 7 years old. Sarah and Emma arrive at the abandoned police station on a cold afternoon, keys jangling in Sarah's nervous hand. The building is a 2-story brick structure from the 1920s, with boarded windows and ivy crawling up the walls like grasping fingers. The front door creaks open, releasing the musty smell of decades of abandonment. Inside, they find a reception area covered in dust, with an old wooden desk, filing cabinets lining the walls, and wanted posters from the 1980s still hanging crookedly on the walls. Emma switches on her flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness and illuminating particles of dust dancing in the air. They move through the building cautiously, discovering holding cells with rusted bars, an evidence room with empty shelves, and an armory that has been completely cleared out. The second floor contains their grandfather's old office, which remains surprisingly intact compared to the rest of the building. Harold Crawford's office feels frozen in time, as if he simply walked out one day and never returned. His desk is made of heavy oak, covered with yellowed papers, old case files, and framed photographs of him in uniform receiving various commendations. Sarah picks up one photo showing their grandfather shaking hands with someone important, though the image is too faded to make out who. Emma opens the desk drawers, finding nothing but rusty paperclips, dried-up pens, and a small leather-bound notebook with entries written in their grandfather's tight, methodical handwriting. The entries are cryptic, mostly numbers and abbreviations that make no sense to either twin. One entry from 1987 simply reads, "The devil's breath arrived today. God help us all. Locked it away where it belongs. No one can ever know." The twins exchange confused glances, wondering what their grandfather was referring to and why he sounded so disturbed. As they continue exploring the office, Emma notices something odd about the wooden paneling behind the desk. One section does not quite match the others, and when she presses on it, they hear a faint click. Sarah helps her pull at the panel, and it swings open to reveal a hidden compartment built into the wall. Inside the dark space, they find a steel lockbox covered in warnings written in faded red paint, "Do not open," "Evidence," "Case 1987 classified," and "By order of Chief Crawford." The box is secured with a heavy padlock that looks far newer than anything else in the building, suggesting their grandfather had been maintaining it even in his final years. Sarah finds a small key taped to the underside of the desk drawer with a note attached that reads, "To my granddaughters, if you are reading this, I am gone. I am sorry for the years we lost. Inside this box is something I should have destroyed long ago, but I could not. It is too important, too valuable, and too dangerous. Keep it hidden, keep it safe, or sell it to someone who understands what it truly is. Never, under any circumstances, use it. Your grandfather, Harold." With trembling hands, Sarah unlocks the box. Inside, nestled in foam padding, is a revolver unlike anything either twin has ever seen. The weapon appears to be from the Old West era, with an ornate silver barrel engraved with symbols neither can identify. The grip is made from what looks like ancient wood, almost black with age, and inlaid with small stones that shimmer with an unusual iridescence in the flashlight beam. Most striking is the cylinder, which appears to contain 6 chambers but has strange markings around each one, symbols that seem to move and shift when you look at them too long. Emma reaches out to touch it, but Sarah grabs her wrist instinctively, remembering their grandfather's warning about never using it. Along with the revolver are 6 brass cartridges in individual protective cases, each one marked with a different symbol matching those on the cylinder. There is also a brittle newspaper clipping from 1888 about a legendary gunfighter named Silas Blackwood, who supposedly made a deal with something unholy to create the perfect weapon, one that never missed its target. The twins carefully close the box and take it back to their apartment, both feeling unsettled by what they have found. Over the next few days, Sarah researches antique firearms online while Emma goes through their grandfather's notebook more carefully, trying to decode his entries. They learn that ornate Old West revolvers can be worth anywhere from a few thousand to over $1 million, depending on their provenance and historical significance. If this weapon truly belonged to Silas Blackwood, and if they can prove it, they could be looking at enough money to change their lives completely. However, the more they research Silas Blackwood, the more disturbing the story becomes. According to historical accounts and folklore, Blackwood was a notorious outlaw and gunfighter who claimed he had never missed a shot in his entire career. He supposedly won the weapon in a card game with a mysterious stranger in a small town that no longer exists. After acquiring the gun, his killing spree intensified until he mysteriously disappeared in 1889, along with the weapon. Some stories claim he was killed by a rival, others that he simply vanished into the wilderness. A few darker tales suggest he tried to destroy the weapon but found he could not, and that it ultimately consumed him. Emma becomes increasingly obsessed with understanding the symbols on the revolver, spending hours comparing them to occult texts and historical documents she finds online. She discovers that some of the markings resemble sigils used in 19th-century folk magic and ceremonial rituals, specifically those intended to bind or compel. One late night, while Sarah is at work, Emma takes the revolver out of its box to examine it more closely under a magnifying glass. As she holds it, she swears she can feel a faint vibration, like a heartbeat pulsing through the metal and wood. The stones in the grip seem to glow faintly, though she tells herself it must be a trick of the light. She notices an inscription along the inside of the barrel, written in Latin, Mors certa, ora incerta, which she translates as, Death is certain, its hour is uncertain. Something about holding the weapon fills her with a sense of power and dread simultaneously, as if the revolver itself is aware of her presence and is waiting for something.
Det Twins decide they need an expert opinion before doing anything else. Sarah contacts a local antico e firearms appraiser named Robert Shen, who has excellent reviews and a reputation for honesty. When Mr. Shen arrives at their apartment the following week, he is a distinguished man in his steez with silver hair and careful hands. Sarah shows him the revolver, carefully explaining how they found it in their grandfather's old police station. Mr. Shen's expression changes the moment he sees the weapon. His hands begin to shake as legal as he examines it with his loupe, studying the engravings, the craftsmanship, and the materials. After 20 minutes of careful inspection, he sets it down and removes his glasses, cleaning them nervously. He tells them this is potentially the most significant find in American firearms history if it is authentic, worth perhaps $5 to $10 million to the right collector. However, he strongly advises them not to sell it through normal channels and to be very careful about who they tell. Mr. Shen explains that there are legends in the antico firearms community about certain weapons that should never be found, weapons with stories so dark that collectors refuse to speak about them openly. The Blackwood Revolver is one of these, sometimes called the Devil's Bargain or Desertant. He has hard stories from other appraisers about people who claimed to it over the years, but none of those claims were ever verified, and many of those people met unfortunate ends. Mr. Shen tells them he knows of one collector who might be interested, a very private man named Marcus Aldridge who lives in a mansion outside the city and specializes in acquiring unusual historical artifacts with questionable provenances. However, Mr. Shen warns that Aldridge is not someone to deal with lightly, as he has connections to people who operate outside the law and has been suspected of various crimes, though nothing has ever been proven. Before he leaves, Mr. Shen looks at both twins seriously and tells them that if even all of the stories about the Blackwood Revolver are true, they should destroy it and walk away. But he also understands they need money, so the choice is theirs. Sarah wants to destroy the revolver immediately, disturbed by everything they have learned and the way Mr. Shen reacted to it. Emma argues that they cannot throw away their only chance at a better life based on superstition and folklore. They need the money desperately. Sarah is 3 months behind on rent, Emma's car is breaking down, and they are drowning in medical debt from their parents' accident. Emma insists the weapon is just antique, that the stories are exaggerations grown over time, and that any dark history is simply that, history. After days of arguing, Sarah reluctantly agrees to at least meet with Marcus Aldridge to hear what he would offer, though she makes Emma promise they will be careful and that they can walk away if anything fails wrong. Emma contacts Aldridge through the information Mr. Shen provided, and within hours, they receive an invitation to visit his estate the following evening. The response team alone tells them that Aldridge has been waiting for this weapon to surface. Marcus Aldridge's estate is a sprawling Gothic mansion surrounded by high walls and dense woods, the kind of place that seems to exist outside normal space and time. Det vins armet et de gate by externifacet security guard who checks their identification before allowing them through. Inside, the mansion is filled with display cases containing artifacts that make both twins uncomfortable. Ancien weapons, strange relics, paintings that seem to what you as you pass, and objects they cannot identify but that radiate a sense of wrongness. Aldridge himself is a tall, female in his 50s with pale skin, dark eyes, and unsettling smile. Regrets den warmly in a study lined with books, many of which look older than the United States itself. After offering the entire, which both decline, Aldridge has to see the weapon. When Sarah carefully removes it from the box, Aldridge's composure breaks for just a moment, revealing genuine avenge hunger in his expression before he regains control. Aldridge examines the Blackwood Revolver with the reverence one might show a religious relic, his fingers tracing the symbols on the cylinder with obvious recognition. He confirms that it is absolutely authentic, and he can prove its provenance through documents he has acquired over the years tracking its history. He tells them that Silas Blackwood did indeed make a bargain for this weapon, trading something precious for the certainty it provided, the guarantee that every shot would find its mark, that every target would fall. The weapon is not merely accurate through superior craftsmanship, it is bound by something older than gunpowder, something that ensures death follows its firing. Aldridge offers them $8 million on the spot, cash, no questions asked, no documentation required. He can have the money transferred within 24 hours. Sarah is overwhelmed by the offer, but something in Aldridge's demeanor frighens her. She asks why he wants it so badly, what he intends to do with it. Aldridge smiles and says he is a collector of certainties in certain world, and this is the ultimate certainty, the guarantee of an engine. Emma is ready to accept immediately, saying $8 million as the solution to every problem they have ever had, but Sarah demands time to think. Aldridge agrees graciously, giving them 48 hours to decide, though he makes it clear that this offer will not stand forever and that there are others who would pay for information about the weapon's location. As they leave the mansion, Sarah feels like they are being watched from every window, and she cannot shake the sensation that they have just made a terrible mistake by showing Aldridge what they found. That night, Emma argues passionately that they should take the money and start new lives, but Sarah cannot stop thinking about their grandfather's warning and Mr. Shane's fear. She researches Marcus Aldridge and discovers he has been implicated in several suspicious deaths over the years, people who possessed her items he wanted, though nothing was ever proven in court. She finds a blog post from an anonymous source claiming Aldridge is part of a secret society that collects objects of power for purposes that go beyond mere collecting. The next morning, Sarah wakes to find Emma gone and the lockbox open on the kitchen table. There is a note. I have gone back to the police station to look for more information about grandfather's connection to the weapon. I think there is something we missed. Back by now. Sarah immediately feels dread wash over her. She calls Emma's phone repeatedly, but it goes straight to voicemail. By in the afternoon, Sarah drives to the old police station, finding Emma's car parked outside but no sign of her sister. Inside the building, she calls Emma's name, her voice showing through the empty halls. She finds Emma in their grandfather's office, sitting at the desk with the revolver in her hands, staring at it with an expression Sarah has never seen before, something between fascination and terror. Emma tells Sarah she loaded one of the cartridges into the cylinder to see if the weapon still functions, and the moment she did, she understood everything. The weapon spoke to her, not with words but with certainty, showing her exactly what it could do and what it wanted.
Emma explains that the revolver does not just guarantee accurate shots. It shows the wielder every possible outcome of pulling the trigger, every branching path of cause and effect, the perfect understanding of how to end any situation with a single bullet. It is intoxicating and horrible at the same time, the weight of knowing exactly how to kill anyone, anything, with absolute certainty. She tells Sarah that their grandfather kept it locked away not because he was afraid of what others would do with it, but because he was afraid of what he might do with it himself. Harold Crawford had used it once, in 1987, to end a hostage situation that would have killed dozens of people. He fired a single shot that seemed impossible, a bullet that curved through a doorway and struck the hostage-taker in the exact spot needed to stop him instantly without harming anyone else. After that day, Harold never touched the weapon again because he understood that using it changed you, made you see everyone as problems that could be permanently solved with perfect precision. Emma sets the revolver on the desk and tells Sarah they have to destroy it, that no amount of money is worth what this weapon represents. However, before they can act, they hear footsteps in the building below. Marcus Aldridge appears in the office doorway with two large men Sarah recognizes as his security guards. Aldridge apologizes for the intrusion but explains that he cannot allow them to destroy something so valuable and rare. He has been searching for the Blackwood Revolver for 20 years, and he will not lose it now that it has finally surfaced. He offers them a choice: sell it to him now for $6 million, a reduced price given the circumstances, or refuse and face the consequences. When Sarah asks what consequences, Aldridge gestures to his guards and suggests that two young women disappearing from an abandoned building would not be particularly suspicious, especially given how many squatters and drug users frequent such places. Emma reaches for the revolver on the desk, but one of the guards moves faster, grabbing her wrist and twisting it painfully. Sarah rushes forward, but the other guard restrains her easily. Aldridge picks up the Blackwood Revolver carefully, examining it with obvious satisfaction. He tells them they were foolish to think they could control something like this, that objects of true power always find their way to those meant to wield them. He begins to leave with the weapon, instructing his guards to ensure the twins understand the importance of silence regarding this entire matter. But as he reaches the office door, Emma shouts that the weapon is still loaded with the cartridge she chambered earlier, and that Aldridge should be careful because their grandfather's note said the ammunition was unstable after so many years. Aldridge pauses, turning back to examine the cylinder. In that moment of distraction, Sarah breaks free from the guard holding her and lunges for a heavy brass desk lamp, swinging it with all her strength and striking the guard in the temple. He drops, stunned, and Emma manages to twist away from the other guard, kicking him hard in the knee. In the chaos, Aldridge raises the revolver instinctively, pointing it at Sarah. Time seems to slow as everyone in the room understands what is about to happen. The weapon that never misses is aimed at Sarah's chest, Aldridge's finger tightening on the trigger. But Emma throws herself between them, screaming for her sister to run. The shot never comes. Instead, Aldridge lowers the weapon slightly, a strange expression crossing his face. He tells them he cannot fire, that the revolver is showing him something unexpected, a future where pulling this trigger sets off a chain of events that ends with his own death in ways he cannot prevent. The certainty works both ways, showing the wielder not just how to end others but also how their actions might end them. He realizes that killing either twin with this weapon would mark him, would create connections and consequences that would inevitably lead to his destruction. The perfect certainty includes the certainty of his own fate. Aldridge slowly sets the revolver on Harold's desk and backs away from it, telling his guards to stand down. He looks at the twins with something like respect and tells them they have won this encounter, but only because the weapon itself has judged the situation. He warns them that if they try to sell it to anyone else, those buyers will not have his restraint, and many would be willing to kill them without using the cursed gun itself. He suggests a different arrangement. He will pay them $2 million for the 6 cartridges alone, leaving them with the unloaded weapon. Ammunition that old and that specifically crafted is nearly impossible to replicate, so without it, the revolver is simply a valuable antique rather than a functioning weapon of certainty. Sarah and Emma exchange glances, communicating silently the way only twins can. They agree to Aldridge's proposal, understanding this is the best outcome they can hope for given the circumstances. The money is transferred that evening, and Aldridge departs with the brass cartridges, leaving the Blackwood Revolver behind. In the days that follow, Sarah and Emma decide what to do with the now unloaded weapon. They contact a museum that specializes in Old West history and law enforcement artifacts, donating the revolver anonymously along with documentation about its history and connection to Silas Blackwood. They leave out the supernatural elements, framing it as simply a legendary weapon used by a notorious outlaw and later kept as evidence by their grandfather. The museum is thrilled with the donation and puts it on display in a secure case with information about its historical significance. Sarah and Emma use the $2 million to pay off their debts, buy a small house, and start a restoration business converting old buildings into community spaces, beginning with their grandfather's police station, which they transform into a youth center named after Harold Crawford. They find peace in this work, in taking something abandoned and making it useful again. However, Emma continues to have nightmares about the moment she held the loaded revolver, the overwhelming sensation of certainty and power that flooded through her. She confesses to Sarah that part of her wanted to use it, wanted to experience that perfect understanding of cause and effect just once more. Sarah admits she felt the same temptation when Aldridge pointed it at her, a strange desire to see what the weapon would show her about her own death. They realize their grandfather's isolation makes more sense now, understanding that he lived with the weight of having used the weapon once and spent the rest of his life resisting the temptation to use it again. They visit his grave for the first time since the funeral, leaving flowers and thanking him for his strength in keeping the Blackwood Revolver locked away all those years. They promise to honor his memory by building something positive from the darkness they inherited. Months later, Sarah receives a letter with no return address. Inside is a newspaper clipping about Marcus Aldridge being found dead in his mansion under mysterious circumstances, along with several of his guards. The official report calls it a home invasion gone wrong, but there are strange details. Aldridge was shot once with extreme precision, and despite his extensive security system. There is no evidence of forced entry or any intruder. Attached to the clipping is a note in handwriting neither twin recognizes. The certainty always collects its debts. Thank you for not paying yours. A friend. Sarah shows the note to Emma, and they both understand that the Blackwood Revolver's ammunition did exactly what it was meant to do, even in Aldridge's possession. Perhaps he tried to have the cartridges reverse-engineered or tested, or perhaps he simply could not resist using one, thinking he could control the certainty. Either way, the weapon's dark legacy claimed another victim. The twins never speak publicly about what they found in their grandfather's police station or the true nature of the Blackwood Revolver. They live quiet, purposeful lives, using their inheritance to help their community and honor the sacrifice their grandfather made in keeping such a dangerous artifact contained. Sometimes, late at night, Emma still feels the phantom weight of the revolver in her hand and remembers the intoxicating certainty it offered. But then she looks at her sister, at the life they have built, at the second chance their grandfather's final gift provided, and she is grateful for the uncertainty of normal existence, for the beautiful chaos of a world where outcomes are not predetermined, where every choice matters precisely because the future remains unknown. The Blackwood Revolver remains in the museum, unloaded and harmless behind glass, a reminder of legends and darkness from a time when the frontier was wild and some men made bargains they could never fully understand. And in Millbrook, two sisters sleep peacefully, knowing they escaped the certainty that destroys all who seek to wield it.